who are now facing relegation potentially. Stefan, just first of all, how much of an achievement is this, or how big an achievement is this for Motherwell to be finishing in the top three?
Historically, I'd say it's maybe, this might surprise you people, but I actually think it's kind of on a par with maybe where the club have been in the last maybe 10, 15 years. I'm only saying that because, they have had the odd, soiree into Europe, as clubs like Hibs and Hearts, for example, have kind of struggled to kind of gain any consistency over the course of a couple of decades. But that doesn't take away from this huge achievement for finishing third, for overcoming an Aberdeen team that obviously have far more money than them. And it's just more of the same from Stephen Robinson. I think we're all huge fans of him on this podcast. We've kind of talked at length about what he can do as a manager, but I think this season's just another example of the manner in which he's just so adaptable with players, with systems, with tactics, with transfers in and out of the club, and he's just got this crucial ability to just kind of get on with what he's got in front of him and turn it into gold. There's no doubt in my mind that Motherwell had a huge rebuild on their hands this summer. Guys like McHugh, Gorin, Hasty, Cadden, James Scott, and then obviously David Turnbull left. Well, not left, obviously, but he was expected to leave before an injury that rolled out for about 95% of the season. So, Motherwell had to really basically a rebuild kind of akin, we've mentioned how obviously Derek McInnes has really struggled to rebuild that squad at Aberdeen this season. Motherwell probably had just as big a project as well, and Robinson, I think, came through it with really impressive ability. We mentioned Declan Gallagher leaving Livingston at the top of the show. I think he's maybe one of the most, maybe I was going to say most improved. That kind of belittles what he did at Livingston, because I think he was superb there too, but he's just kind of gone on from strength to strength as well, and earned himself a Scotland cap, which I think was thoroughly deserved. Sherman Seedorf's another one who I think, another really smart signing from down south, but Motherwell seemed to do a really good job of. I think he was from down south, or at least from an English club. Maybe I'm wrong there. But he's obviously come in and done a very good job as well. That goal against Hearts is one that really stands out for me at Tynecastle. Chris Long has come in. I think he finished the season top goal scorer for the squad. And Liam Polworth as well, who I think, again, remarkably, despite the stats he puts on the board, I think he kind of goes under the radar for a lot of the time. I don't know what you guys think about that, but alongside guys like Alan Campbell and Craig Turnbull, who's obviously still at the club, I think Polworth has actually managed to really very quickly establish himself as the kind of playmaker in this squad. And all of his assists come from corners and stuff, but he's still a tremendous kind of puller of strings, if you allow to kind of fathom such a term. But I think each of those players is an example of how well Robinson is as a coach at just kind of taking this kind of mould of putty and turning it into something. They're obviously all very good players in their own right when they arrived at the club, but for someone like Polworth, they just kind of step into that squad and, without laying a huge amount of expectation on the shoulders, he's really stepped in and helped that squad replace Turnbull for the most part. I know he doesn't really contribute as many goals, and other players in the squad have maybe been able to chip in with that, but the way that Motherwell have managed to do that, I know maybe James might be able to put more detail on it, the way that they've kind of swapped and changed the formations this season. I think, again, so just kind of like bottom line, I think this is just another season that underlines the really smart ability Robinson has in taking anything that is put in front of him and kind of that kind of Midas touch and turn it into gold. And I think Motherwell continue to just kind of profit from it tremendously.
Yeah, I'll kind of keep on a similar path for you, James. I think it's what Stefan says is kind of where I was going with it. But I think what's so impressive is when you think about even a couple of seasons ago, like the kind of around the time that Louis Moult was at Motherwell, and how they played as a team there under Robinson when he was kind of first at the club, and look at them now, and even look at how they've evolved, because it just feels like it's not even linear. The way they play or the way they've kind of changed in terms of style is changed significantly, not just once but multiple times. And I guess what I was going to put to you, James, was it's not just how impressive is it that, or how Yeah, how impressive is it that they've got this midfield where people can sub in and out and play different positions, and this is without their star player from last season, David Turnbull. I know you're a fan of Polworth, you mentioned before, but there are quite a few players in there which seem to be kind of adaptable and be able to play different roles in this side.
Yeah, and I think as Stefan said, that's absolutely testament to Robinson's coaching ability. I mean, we all know this all started winter 2018. He just sort of ripped it all up, started again, and they've not really looked back since. I think, when you consider that the season they've had, they managed it without their best player is quite something. As Stefan saying, the recruitment side of it's been excellent. Guys like Gallagher has been an incredibly astute signing. Polworth, who I still can't really believe no one else took a punt on him earlier. Like, I think the previous 2 seasons in the Championship for Inverness, I think in all competitions he'd racked up something about, it was like 40, 45 assists or something crazy like that. So he's obviously a guy that has immense technical ability, and he's made the step up look very easy. And I think a lot of that is down to Robinson. He knows what Polworth's good at, and he gets the best out of him. Like Stefan alluded to, some of these assists are coming from set pieces and that kind of thing, but also a lot of them are coming from open play as well. He's just a very good technical player who's got an excellent eye for a pass and the ability to pull it off. So yeah, I'm a really big fan of him. I think that one of the things that really stands out for me for Motherwell is the fact that when you look over the last 5 or 6 seasons, the only non-Old Firm team to finish ahead of McInnes's Aberdeen were Steve Clarke's Killie last year. And we were all rightly ranting and raving about how brilliant a job Steve Clarke had done, about how great a team they were, and they finished ahead of Aberdeen on goal difference, I believe, last season. This year, okay, you can argue till you're blue in the face about whether or not Aberdeen would have caught Motherwell, because Motherwell's form was a wee bit shaky since they came back. But I think that it's telling that apart from Clarke's Killie, which we've already said are a brilliant team, he's the only manager to have done that, to finish ahead of Aberdeen, who have really sort of established themselves, I think, in the last 10 years or so as being like the third team in Scotland. So I think that in itself is impressive, because it's a very select group that managed to actually pull that off. When you look at as well the rise in league position, it's the same as Livy. They've risen 4 positions this year. No other team, only Livy, come close to that. So it has been a dramatic improvement. I think the most interesting thing though is that it's not even really much of a surprise. Now I know maybe Motherwell fans might disagree with me, but I think when we saw their form the second half of the previous season, they were brilliant, and they looked absolutely as if they could be challenging for Europe next season. And then they've just came back after the summer. They've added players where they needed to, and they were absolutely. They just continued where they left off, and I think that's really impressive. I also think it's important to point out that during this whole time of Robinson at the helm, they've lost key players by selling them, but they've also made a huge profit as well. Guys, by moving on guys like Hasty and Louis Moult and Kiefer, they've lost a lot of players, but they've probably banked the best part of £2 million in that process, which is impressive to. I think that speaks a lot to Robinson, and particularly his coaching ability, in that he's continually lost his best players. He's managed to improve the team dramatically, and made them £2 million in the process by selling players, which is a phenomenal achievement. So I think that he's had an absolutely outstanding season, and I think he's definitely one of the most capable coaches in the league. And I just hope that we get to see more of the same next season. It'll be really interesting to see what happens when Turnbull does come back. Because obviously, you've got guys like Alan Campbell, who's been superb again, Polworth, Turnbull, Donnelly as well, and that sort of holding role. Grimshaw sometimes in the midfield, sometimes at the fullback. It'll be interesting to see how Robinson squeezes all his best players into that starting 11, because if he can find a system which gets as many of his best players in that team as possible, then Motherwell could once again be a real force to be reckoned with next year. And the last 18 months would suggest that Robinson is precisely capable of doing that. So I think it's a really exciting time to be a Motherwell fan, and I think they're just they're definitely one of the feel-good stories going about in Scottish football at the moment.